Only a Matthew Guy Liberals and Nationals government has real solutions to support integrity and honesty to government in Victoria.
Wow, a week's a long time in politics. Fresh from the release of the Operation Watts report, Matthew Guy must have been riding on a high. While the report wasn't enough to bring down Daniel Andrews, there was enough in it to provide plenty of ammunition for the opposition heading into the election.
Our report illustrates a catalogue of unethical and inappropriate behaviour and concerning practices, and the environment in which such behaviour was able to flourish. They range from the hiring of unqualified people into publicly funded roles, using those roles to support factional work, nepotism, forging signatures, bullying behaviours, and attempts to interfere with government grants to favour factionally aligned community organisations who, in some cases, failed to use the funds as intended. These factors and the nature of factional power struggles tend to confirm that misuse of public resources was not confined to one faction. And it was generally accepted in evidence that the culture allowing branch stacking to continue for so long gave rise to the real risk of corruption. But proof of the broader problem was more anecdotal. The evidence of branch stacking was not limited to one faction, but the evidence of misconduct only concerned the moderate Labor faction of the ALP. We had no specific evidence that allowed us to determine the extent of misuse by any other faction or make further findings of misconduct.
It is worth flagging that Operation Watts had a very defined scope of what it could investigate.
Our jurisdiction's enlivened when we get a specific allegation of misconduct that may constitute a relevant offence. That can be investigated. We do not have a wide, unfettered jurisdiction to look at the subject matter of the complaint. We were referred specific allegations which we had to investigate, and so that defined the scope of the investigation. As it turned out, as the Ombudsman has explained, we received no further complaints containing evidence of misconduct by other factions. Hence, the investigation was limited in the way I've explained.
Arguably, this was the most damning finding.
My Red Shirts report highlighted the need for reform in 2018. The response was tepid, and this report highlights how little has changed.
In other words, the lack of action from the government on the Red Shirts report allowed the cultural failings highlighted in the Operation Watts report to flourish. Anyway, I digress. For a moment there, integrity was something Matthew Guy was keen on talking about.
Integrity in government means everything.
Transparency and integrity in government.
I value integrity in government and also in opposition. Integrity matters in government.
Then on the 2nd of August, this happened.
The Victorian Liberal Party is facing a police investigation after Matthew Guy's Chief of Staff was forced to quit over a secret payment scandal. It was laid out in an email trail that revealed plans to funnel more than $100,000 to the staffer's private business.
Guy's Chief of Staff, Mitch Catlin, quit after asking a Liberal Party donor to pay approximately $125,000 over roughly a 12-month period, or just over $8,000 per month, to his own marketing company. Furthermore, if the coalition didn't win the election, the monthly payments would increase to over $20,000 per month. This has all the hallmarks of a salary top-up. The Age reported that Caitlin had emailed Matthew Guy asking him to forward the contract to the unnamed donor. According to The Age, the contract must have found its way to the donor, as they report that the donor chose not to sign the contract. Maybe it's just me, but supporting business interests as a service, it's got an icky vibe about it. The integrity platform Matthew Guy had looked to stand on heading into the election had lasted all of 4 days. With the whole deal well and truly failing the pub test, you could tell things were bad when coalition safe ground like Sky News and 3AW were joining the pile-on.
Look, now back to Victoria, where for once it's the opposition that's in trouble over integrity. On Monday, the Chief of Staff to Opposition Leader Matthew Guy resigned after news leaked out that he, the Chief of Staff, had asked a donor to top up his salary. Now, what an idiot.
These excerpts from a 3AW interview really illustrate the hot water Matthew Guy had found himself in.
This proposal that was detailed in the Age newspaper a week ago about your Chief of Staff looking to get his pay topped up by a donor to the Liberal Party, when did you become aware of that scheme?
Oh, Tom, I've answered all questions on this last week. I'm not going to go into this a week after it for something that never took place. And I'm not sure why a week later, after doing 2 doorstops at the back of Parliament, 1 at the front of Parliament, you'd asked me the same questions that I said I've answered a week ago.
For the sake of this audience that might not have heard any of your other interviews, just when did you become aware of it?
Tom, I'm not going to go into this chapter and verse all over again. I'm just not. I'm sorry. I have done this over and over.
Well, his emails say that you actually agreed to the scheme. Is that true?
Well, if something was agreed to, why did it never take place?
Well, according to the Age, it didn't take place because the donor was the one who said no to it.
Would you believe everything you read in the Age with great respect?
No, I wouldn't, and that's why I'm asking you directly, and you can just set the record straight here and we'll move on.
I've said over and over again, if I'd agreed to something, then what the biggest indication to yourself should be that nothing took place.
So you never agreed to it. The email that Mitch Catlin said, where he said that you did agree to it, that's wrong.
Tom, if I'd agreed to something, why did it never take place? I've answered these things all over the whole week. I think it's time to move on and talk about issues actually affecting.
Well,
surely
I would like to move on. I would like to move on, but I would just like this. I would just like this addressed first. I would like this addressed first. All you have to say is, I first heard about it at this point in time, and then you can say, did you agree to it or did you not? Did you knock it on the head, for example?
Tom, I'm not going through all this. I've done this a whole week. I've done a whole week of answering questions on this matter. Something that was never agreed to. Something I might add again. That was never agreed to, that was never signed, that no money ever changed hands, ever.
Just say when you first heard about it and what was your reaction to it, and then we can move on. But otherwise, it's going to keep going around in circles.
It is going to go around in circles, because I can't give you an exact date, because I don't go back and look at these emails from the past.
Okay.
I haven't done that.
Well,
I don't intend to do that.
What was your reaction to the scheme?
I've been referred to everybody except the AFL Commission on this matter. They can go and do their work. I'm not going to have this debate on 3AW. I'm just not. I'm sorry.
Did you think the scheme was a bad idea when you heard about it?
Did it take place?
No, it didn't take place, but...
Well, doesn't that answer your question?
Well, not necessarily, because according to the Age, it was the donor that said, I won't do it. It wasn't you. So I'm just saying, did you think it was a bad idea? Just yes or no?
Well, the mere fact that nothing took place should answer that question.
So you thought it was a bad idea?
Thank you, Tom. What else would you like to talk to me about?
Well, I would like you to confirm that you thought it was a bad idea.
Well, given this is under investigation by every investigative body the state has, I think it's best those questions left to them rather than a radio interview on 3AW, with great respect.
All right. Who's leaking all these emails? Is it Tim Smith?
I'm an idiot.
That again has got nothing to do with me.
It does.
I have no idea of it.
Well, is it Bernie Finn?
It's got nothing to... That has got no consequence of mine. I have no idea, and I'm not going to accuse someone on national radio. That's just unfair.
Does it worry you that someone is doing it?
Well, I can only say from the very start, nothing was agreed to, nothing was signed. I've done this chapter and verse for a whole week.
You can knock this on the head by saying, I always thought it was a bad idea. But you won't say that. You just say, I don't want to talk about it. And people, the more you say I don't want to talk about it, the more people will ask you about it.
Because I've been asked about it for 8 or 9 days and all day at Parliament last.
All right. Well, I still think it would do you great service if you could just say, this is when I heard about it, and this was my reaction. And if you give the right answers there, it moves on. But the fact that you won't directly answer the questions is a very bad look, if I can be so bold.
Well, thanks for the character assessment. I get many of them, and I'll just as I said, deal with the fact that the government are the ones who have referred me to every investigative body by the AFL Tribunal, and I'll deal with that.
Damn, that was a train wreck. For Guy, there are plenty of questions he'll be asking of his own team, like where are the leaks coming from and how can they turn the Titanic around?
Jack.
It's been such an own goal for the coalition, I can't imagine Guy being all that popular in the party room right now. When it comes to integrity, as the Operation Watts report shows, there are questions the Victorian government needs to address. It's just that, unfortunately for Victoria, the coalition are not the ones to be asking them.
Failing the integrity test.